the Quran, the Hadith, the Tripitaka, the Veda, the Bible, or any of these holy books, there is a problem finding a contradiction in any of these books. And if you ask any of these religions, there is no contradictions in those books, period. And the reason that this is, and the reason that it is impossible to show, to some degree, a contradiction, is because there is a different standard of a contradiction that is used by the religious proposition than is used in any other context. And the difference is they already have a presupposition that there cannot be any contradictions in those books. So when you have two different stories that go two different directions, unless they're mutually exclusively incompatible, then they say, well, both of those can simultaneously happen. And the reason that it is not logical is because we don't apply this logic in any other situation, period. And I'll give you a primary example. If you received an email from a friend today, let's say Larry, emailed you and said, hey, John died. Yeah, I heard he got hit by a car and he passed away. And then a few minutes later, you got an email from Tim, and Tim said, John died. I heard he got shot and now he's passed away. If you took the presupposition that it's not possible for those two emails to be wrong, that it can't be wrong, then all you do is you say, well, he had to have gotten shot and hit by a car at the same time, and that makes these work. And you can do this with anything. As illogical as that may be, that someone is hit by a car and shot at the same time, if you already start with the proposition that it can't be wrong, you just make these two coexist. And we see this in Bible conversations and in apologetics constantly. It's one of the biggest defense systems they run. And the reason that I use this as a comparative is we actually have a very similar comparative in Christian apologetics. When we see one gospel say that Judas was hung to death, and then another says that he fell headlong in a field and his guts burst out. Well, if you don't want there to be a contradiction, you just say, oh, well, that's okay. This can coexist. Both of these things can happen in the same way that John could be shot by a bullet and hit by a car. It's not something we reason. But if you get two different stories, you can always say, well, they can both happen at the same time. And that's not standards that we apply in any other form of logic. But this is done regularly, and the only good contradictions generally that we can find that are mutually exclusive incompatibilities that they can't both be is generally around numbers. And I know this is one that Daniel Craig, he says, that this is intangent, these numbers or these types of contradictions, that they're of no importance. I think Dinesh D'Souza kind of dismisses them as, this is not being able to see the forest through the trees. And they make it out as if these number contradictions or these small mutual exclusive incompatibilities, that they're not a big deal. But the reason that they are hung on and all the rest are let go of is because they specifically possess a mutual exclusive incompatibility. It can't be both this and that. So this is why some of them, some people that are arguing about these contradictions hang on things like the king in the Old Testament that was, he began to reign at 8, and then in one verse he began to reign at 18. These are two different numbers, but it still uses the term began to reign at this age. So while this might be considered frivolous, that this is of no importance, who cares when he began to reign? The reason that these are used, and others like these are used, is because they are mutual exclusive. And when you see things like the colt and the donkey mix up that Matthew did, so we got Zechariah, I think, was first used this poetic prophecy that said a colt, or first said a donkey, and then said that go get the young colt. or something like this. I'm sorry, I'd had to pull the Zechariah one up. But what this is it was a double reinforcement from Zechariah. It was talking about the same donkey, a young colt. It's just, this is, we have an older Hebrew does this all the time with prophecies, that they reinforce it by saying it two different ways. So they might say that he took to him a donkey, a young colt. But Matthew mixes this up where all the other three gospels say a donkey, or John I think uses the term colt, but it's the same thing. It's one animal. But Matthew sees this and he tries to fulfill this component of prophecy, and he misunderstands the prophecy side of it. So he says that Jesus rode on a donkey and a colt, or that he went and got a donkey and a colt. This is absolutely ridiculous. Matthew murdered this one, because he's trying to make it line up with prophecy, and he doesn't realize that this is just redundancy in vocabulary. It's just one animal. And what's hilarious about this is not only does this mismatch then from the other Gospels, but even the Gospel of Thomas, I think, mentions something similar to this. I think it's a jab at this mismatch, if I'm not mistaken. And one thing to know about Thomas, the Gospel of Thomas, is it is largely rejected by scholars as being, the majority of it being first century, first of all. They think that some of the components of it actually might be older than any text of the gospel. Some components of it, some scholars believe, are as early as 50 AD. But other components are stretched out up to 200 or 250 AD. So this text had a lot of development, and a bit had been added to it. And I myself don't know which components are considered older or newer text, but I think the Gnostics primarily come into possession of, like, the Gospel of Thomas. And what's funny is when I was reading it one day, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the saying, I think it's around saying 47, he's quoting Jesus, and he says that that it's impossible to ride two horses. And I feel like, then he said it's or string two bows at the same time. And I feel like it was a dig at Matthew, saying that he rode in on a donkey and a colt. But anyway, it's a thing that this is a mutual exclusive incompatibility. And while Dinesh or any of these bigger apologetics might dismiss this and say, oh, this is of no importance, it's of no significance, the reason that we hang on these is because all of the other events, you just make them coincide. Oh, well, they can both happen, simultaneously. Yeah, this one said that and this one said this, but yeah, they could both happen. Whereas these things are mutual exclusive incompatibilities, and they can't both happen. You can't begin to reign at 18 and begin to reign at 8, or you can't ride a donkey and a horse, a donkey and a colt at the same time. You can't ride two different animals. So little things like this, and there's several little more, but this is why these frivolous ones seem to be hung on, whereas in large part we let go of the other ones because, yeah, you can make everything coexist. Oh yeah, both could be happening simultaneously, even though some of these things are huge subjects, and one gospel mentioned it but the other one didn't. Such as 2 gospels didn't even mention that Jesus was born of a virgin. 2 gospels didn't mention one of the biggest miraculous things of the characterage of Jesus, and 2 gospels just didn't mention it. And oh well, the other gospels mention it. That the absence of evidence isn't the evidence of absence. This is what we're talking about, and this is why we try to steer off of those subjects, because every religion, it's not just Christianity, does this with their holy books. And they make this, well, there's no contradiction here. It's not possible for there to be a contradiction, because they start with the presupposition that there isn't and that there can't be, and that's how they can reconcile anything that has different accounts. But anyway, I just wanted to address that. That's not how we address things or call things contradictions in modern time. In modern time, when we've seen those 2 different emails, that John was shot to death or John was hit by a car, in modern time we'd look at that and say, well, there's a problem here. Both of them weren't there, so neither one of them probably, got it right. They don't really know what happened. One of them's wrong, maybe both of them's wrong, neither one was present. But they don't do this when something like Judas happens, and one says he was hung, and one says he fell in the field. Whoever was writing this, neither one of them were present, so Either one of them could be wrong. We apply this logic in modern time, but you don't get to apply this logic if you start with the presupposition that they have to be right. Anyway, just wanted to cover that.